This is the first video of the Math 8-9 Honors course at OKM Mission Secondary. The topics in this video will be from sections 4.1 and 4.2 of the Math Makes Sense 8 textbook. We'll start with 4.1, Exploring Nets. A net is a diagram that can be folded to make an object. In number 1 we have a diagram of a net. That net could be folded to make a rectangular prism. If we sketch a rectangular prism, it would basically be a three-dimensional object that would look like that. A net shows all the faces of an object. A net can be used to make an object called a polyhedron. A polyhedron has faces that are polygons. Two faces meet at an edge. Three or more edges meet at a vertex. The big idea in section 4.1 is to determine whether an object is a prism or a pyramid. If a shape has one base, it is considered a pyramid. If a shape has two congruent bases, it is considered a prism. When all faces on a prism other than the bases are rectangles and they are perpendicular to the bases, the prism is called a right prism. Here is a right cylinder. To draw the net of a cylinder, we have to recognize that the curved area, or the body of the cylinder, unfolds to make a rectangle. The circles, or the top and bottom of that cylinder, are then drawn on opposite sides of the rectangle. In the net of the right cylinder, the two congruent, meaning same or equal, circles are on opposite sides of the rectangle. Suppose this diagram was cut out and folded along the dotted lines to make an object. Name the object. This particular net would be called a right rectangular prism. Again, it is a prism because it has two bases. The base is the shape of a rectangle. When folded up, they meet at right angles, thus right rectangular prism. Number 13, we have another object. We're asked in part A to name this object. This is a right triangular prism. Again, we have two bases. There's 1 and 2. The bases are triangles. Right triangular prism. Describe this object. When describing the object, we describe each face. There are two congruent, meaning same or equal, triangular bases. And we have three rectangular faces. Section 4.2 is more of the same. To determine if a diagram is a net for an object, look at each shape and how each shape is arranged. If a shape has one base, it is a pyramid. If a shape has two bases, it is a prism. If a shape has a three-sided base, so one base, it would be a pyramid, and it's three-sided, it is a triangular pyramid. If a shape has two three-sided bases, it is called a right triangular prism. If a shape has a four-sided base, so one base, again a pyramid, then it could be either a square, so if the base is a square, if all four sides are equal, be a square pyramid, or a rectangular pyramid. Moving on, a five-sided base would give you a pentagonal pyramid, six-side hexagonal, seven-sided heptagonal, eight-sided octagonal. Is the following shape a net of an object? When we look at the net, we have to ask ourselves, when we fold it up, would any of the sides overlap? We can see that we have these two rectangles on the same side of the net. If we fold up the net, the two sides would overlap. So to answer the question, we answer no. It is not a net of an object. To explain, it is because there would be overlap when folded up. If it is not a net, what changes could you make so it could be a net? If I label one of these sides A and another one B, we could state that we need to move side A to the opposite side of side B. Some practice. Number 12, name the shapes. In part A, we take a look, we ask ourselves how many bases there are. Are there one or two bases? In this case, there are two, and I will shade those in. How many sides on that base? The base has 8 sides. So for part A, we would call it an octagonal prism. Pardon me, we can call it a right octagonal prism. Part B, we have two bases again, so it is a prism. It is six-sided, so we call it a right hexagonal prism. And part C, we have one base. It is a square, so we call it a square pyramid. You may now proceed to your assignment.